foremost, welcome to my first panel here at another Anime Con.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Matthew Mercer. I'm a voice actor and professional nerd, I guess, from Los Angeles, California. I've been doing voiceover professionally for a while now, as my main source of income for going on almost 10 years. That's crazy. I'm old. But yeah, I'm extremely thankful to be out here with you guys. I'm a little jet lagged, so be patient if I seem a little spacey at times. But I did get 4 hours of sleep last night, so that's enough to function. The system is moving forward, even though it's making loud grinding noises as it goes. But anyway, so this panel, it's predominantly discussing the voiceover industry, animation, cartoons, video games. I'll kind of go do a brief overview of my kind of introduction experience to the industry, and then we'll go into an open Q&A. But it's open to really any questions. We're not stringent. I'm not going to be like, that isn't relevant to this panel, leave! We'll be pretty much ask anything. We're fine with that. Anyway, so yeah, I began voiceover as a theater nerd. I did a lot of community theater and stage productions when I was in school and in my general surrounding community. I love theater, and I think it's a great place to learn a lot of different skill sets. One, public speaking and being comfortable in front of an audience, because there's no better trial by fire than throwing you on stage with bright lights in front of a whole room of people you can just barely see going, make me entertained. So theater's a great place to kind of trial by fire yourself. Also, you find a great community there, a good, positive, kind of supportive atmosphere. You're all there to have a good time and tell a story. And as a person who loves storytelling, it was a really, really important craft for me to begin to hone at a young age. So my love of theater, musical theater, and love of all things, cartoons, anime, and video games began to slowly merge as the years went on. And I had an opportunity to do background voices in a project once. Like, when I say background voices, or Walla as it's called, it's no special character, more on the script you see man number 4A, and the line is like, my hat, that's where I got started. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I was like, I'm pretty sure I was a bunch of guys whose heads were exploding in the Fist of the North Star series, my first project ever. So not even any dialogue, just for 3 hours. But I was excited because it was my first time to kind of really, be in the booth, the microphone. And I made like $50, and I was like, I made money. So it was enough to kind of give me an idea that this is a possible career path, though upon researching, also realizing how daunting and difficult it is as well. And it's a very, very competitive industry. And I think it's important that anybody who wants to go into this field knows that, because you kind of have to, it has to be your full passion. You can't half-ass it and be like, I'll work, but I might do some voiceover on the side. It's very rare to pull that off, because you're going up against people that their whole life is geared towards that career path. And I had to learn that. So it became a very, very important focus for the next few years to go ahead and take classes and workshops and fine-tune my experience behind a microphone and, have better diction and be comfortable in a space to take direction quickly, and being able to look at a piece of copy or a script and interpret it very quickly. Because a lot of times in voiceover, you don't get a script in advance. Most cartoon projects, you'll get it a few days in advance, maybe. Video games, you usually see it for the first time when it's on the pad there with the microphone in front of you, and the director's like, all right, so you're 35, your parents were killed by demons, and go. And that's about as much context as you get sometimes. And so you have, part of the skill set is cold reading. It's being able to read a script for the first time and interpret it confidently and make decisions based on your experience and what you can glean from what little information you have. It may not be the right choice, and that's fine, but as long as you make a bold choice, that stands out, it sets characterization, and the director could then just, tune you, or as they call it, dial you in to where they kind of want you to be for the rest of the recording. So yeah, those classes in cold reading were extremely important. Theater was extremely important. Singing classes and breathing is very important. Knowing how to just be in tune with your voice and how to properly speak long periods of time on one breath is extremely important, as not all video game writers like to be succinct or use punctuation. So yeah, many years later, many trials and tribulations, I finally left my day job and decided to downsize to an itty bitty little studio apartment in North Hollywood with like a rickety bed that I got for free off Craigslist and probably came with all sorts of parasites. I don't know, because Craigslist. But I just worked really hard, pushed really hard, tried to come at it from a point of view of knowing what I was worth, but also being respectful and humble of it, as opposed to some people I meet who come in the industry are like, no, you're going to hire me because I'm the best. And I find that tends to leave a bad taste in a lot of casting directors' mouths. Come at it with a point of humility. You want to show what you can, but from the standpoint, let the work speak for itself, as opposed to trying to convince them that you're just so good. Even if you are. Because later on, when you actually have a career, you can be like, I told you it was so good! And they can't argue because you've already proven yourself. I don't do that yet. But one day, no. So anyway, that's kind of the short-term definition of my career so far. I have lived a very creative lifestyle, I call it, of odd jobs to make ends meet during that time period. Eating creatively, which involves how do I flavor the ramen this week? Way too much MSG and sodium, I'm sure, in those years. And that'll come back to bite me in the ass many years from now, I'm certain. But you know what? It worked fine for the time. So it was a very humble lifestyle to pursue acting in any form as a career. So if any of you have an interest in that, be prepared to live humbly for a while. That while can be years, as it was for me. But anyway, so since then, worked on a number of cartoons, animation, and video games. Let's see, recent animation bits. I'm currently in the new season of Regular Show, the last season of Regular Show on Cartoon Network, and Adult Swim. I'm super excited about that. A bunch of characters to that, including one named Chance Sure Shot, who apparently has my hair in the show, which was a nice surprise. Let's see. There is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. You have to play Jotaro, which was... By the way, the first anime I ever watched at a convention ever was 1996. I told you I was old. At Anime Expo in LA, and I walked into the first video room, and they had the original, the showdown between Dio and Jotaro in the film, and I was enthralled. And so being able to come back and be part of that project has been like this huge nerd full circle for me, and I'm super excited about it. But that one's a lot of fun. See, recent games, World of Warcraft Legion just came out. I'm scattered all throughout that. Let's see, Here's the Storm, Rhaegar. I have another character coming up soon they haven't announced yet I can't talk about, but that's happening soon. Overwatch. You guys play Overwatch? See a few Overwatch players. It's 3:15. But I appreciate you being eager to leave. So yeah, all kinds of projects like that. And that's enough of me talking at your face with no context. Let's go ahead and open the floor to some questions. So you were very quick on that draw. Well done.
What do you admire most about Levi?
What do I admire most about Levi? That's an interesting question. I admire that he understands the greater role that he has to play for the remains of humanity. He's looked up to as being the strongest, as being this immovable rock. And because of that, he's not allowed to be human in a way. Like, he's not allowed to show emotion. He's not allowed to show remorse or hurt. He has to just swallow it all and be strong, because if he shows any cracks, then the rest of the people that rally behind him for support to be that one beacon of bravery, they're going to waver and crumble. And so what I admire about him is understanding kind of the personal sacrifice he has to perpetually make to not show any weakness, because if he does, everyone else is going to fall. And I admire that. I think it's really kind of a sad place to be in for him. It's part of the reason I like the character. He has so many subtle intricacies beyond just being a clean freak and kind of a badass. But yeah, I'd say definitely that. No worries. Our next question. Let's go over there with the orange wig. Hi. What are my thoughts on nudist beach? I mean, if that's your thing, I don't know if you have one nearby. You could totally do that. Just. Oh, from Kill la Kill. Okay. Same answer. No, Kill la Kill was a phenomenally fun series to be part of. It had just come off of a cusp of a number of series where I'd played pretty subdued, stoic characters, and so being able to play a Mikisagi, who is such an over-the-top, ridiculous, and mostly naked character, which became a trend after Magi with Sinbad. It was a lot of fun, and that whole the animation style and the whole energy of that show is so over the top and ridiculous and just fun that I loved it. And so the whole nudist beach aspect of it, when it became more prominent in the series, I was like, what is happening? Are you kidding me? Even when he says his first sequence was like, we are nudist beach. Close up at the lips, and all of a sudden he throws up in the window, nudist beach, and the birds fly by, and the sparkles from the sunshine, and it was fun. Not to mention when you finally get to meet the group, and they're just like this militant, thong-wearing folks jumping into giant mechs with their asses in the air, like you do. If you haven't seen Kill la Kill, I'm going to give you no context. I think this should be the reason now that you should go watch it, because it's absurd. But yeah, that was a very fun project, and the nudist beach whole theme, the whole crew, in fact, even the symbol, which is hilarious in its own right. I'm a fan. All right, let's go right there in the front.
As you can tell by my past, I'm a big fan of Tales of Xillia. So,
feel for that, yeah.
what was your favorite part about playing Alvin, and are there any real big differences between doing an anime and then voicing for a video game?
Okay, cool. So two-part question. First question, what's my favorite part of voicing Alvin in the Tales of Xillia 1 and 2? Alvin was fun because he begins as that kind of cocksure, Han Solo-esque rogue personality, which when you have a group of people that are generally serious in their own ways and they all have their own intense personas, it's good to be that person that kind of breaks the tension and pokes other characters and kind of takes them off their pedestal a bit. And Alvin definitely had that going for him. Plus the fact that you never really knew who he was working for, and he tends to keeps betraying you, and you keep letting him back in. He's like, all right, let's see if I do oh, I did it again. Oops. Let me back in again? Okay. What I like about Alvin is, in a similar way to Levi, there's a persona that you see that is a very classic kind of character trope, a personality that you think you understand as soon as you see it. And the more you delve into him, the more you get to understand how fractured he is as a person and the reasons for why he acts the way he does, and the slippery loyalties that kind of follow. And especially in Xillia 2, you get to see even more of why he made his transition from the first to from the second one, where he tried to make himself better, became a businessman, and was trying to essentially make up for his past misdeeds. And there really is a lot of tragedy to that character. And so what I really liked about Alvin was taking a character trope personality and then finding all those subtleties and kind of raking into it and finding ways to really play out those fractured aspects of his personality. So as a performer, I really liked the depth they allowed him to go to. In the first game, when he has a sequence that gets kind of dark, those of you who played it know what I'm talking about. And the sequel as well. So I really enjoyed that. Second part of your question, which was what's the difference between recording for a cartoon or anime versus a video game? For prelay animation, which is when most Western animation, we record before the animation's ever done. So it's usually either done solo or the whole cast in a room together on separate mics, and we record it like a radio play. And so we all get to play off of each other's dialogue, and the energy is really, really fun. So that's prelay. And then we come back a year later when the animation comes in and we do ADR in case anything changed or shifted during the animation process. For anime, it's already pre-done, it's already pre-animated, so we have the script ahead of us, and you have to take it line by line, trying to match not only the action and the intensity and the personality that's on screen, but also have to fit whatever dialogue is in the script and what it's trying to convey within this very, very stringent period of time, and hit mouth flaps and beats, make sure that big sounds hit when the mouths get large, but not make it sound unnatural. So it's a very technical process. ADR and anime dubbing is much more involved skill set than most other voiceover, which is why a lot of voice actors can't or won't do it, because they can't quite understand the nuances of it. People who've trained in music or have a music background tend to fall into it much easier because you know meter well, you know timing, you know how to synchronize beats. So that I find a lot of people who are musicians made it into anime dubbing pretty well. But it's very intense. Video game. it's very similar to prelay. You have the script in front of you, and you just record what's there, and they animate to whatever you're doing. The other difference, though, in video games is it's usually a giant Excel document with sometimes thousands of lines, and you just have to go. You go in there for 4 hours at a time and just record, and they might show you the dialogue you're playing off of, they might not. You have to work in a vacuum. You have to have a good imagination and hope the director is giving you context, and if not, don't be afraid to ask for it, because a lot of times you have no idea what the hell's going on, and you kind of have to pull to get information. And occasionally they'll be like, I don't know. What do you think? And you're like, oh. All right. But the one thing about video games I will say is, especially more action-based video games, there's a whole slew of creative ways to get hurt and die. Usually they'll save them to the end of a session, thank God. But they'll, like Resident Evil 6 is a good example. We had an entire session that was just deaths. Just deaths. Which at the end I couldn't talk because it just destroys you. Where it's like, okay, so for this one, I need about 2.5 seconds. You're being a blade through the stomach, lifted in the air, and then you slide down off the blade as it bisects you. Go. And you're like, okay, so... You know, that's great. Give me that 2 more times. Like, all right, cool. That again, but you're on fire. How does that happen? It's just recorded. Okay. That's great. Now you're on fire. You fall off the blade off a cliff into a vat of acid. So yeah, so they get real creative with it. But it's a lot of screaming. It's a lot of, small falls, medium falls, heavy falls to an impact, That's great. We need 6 more of those. So that's the big glaring difference for video games, is they tend to destroy you. Good question. Let's go in the way back with the scarf. Hello.
Do you have any advice, tips, or tricks for creating a voice acting demo from scratch?
Tips and tricks for creating a voiceover demo from scratch. 1, listen to other demos for examples. You can go to many of the major agencies or any voice actors that you're a fan of or like their stylings and go look up and listen to their demos and see the pacing of it, the range and variety of voices they get to. You definitely generally don't want a demo to go longer than 1 minute to 1.5 minutes at the very longest. You want to start with your natural voice. Most actors, the most comfortable place you are, and really what you're going to be cast more than anything is your normal speaking voice. That's just how it is. So you want to start with that, and then you can begin to divert into various dialects and accents or character voices. You also want to define what style you're shooting for. You'll see a lot of actors have a different demo for animation versus interactive. And the reason is a lot of video games tend to go a more subdued cinematic route, whereas cartoons are a little more over the top. And anime, and more serious animation kind of falls in the middle there, so you can kind of, both demos can have a bit of that. But you want to make sure that you know what you're trying to sell within that demo. Put your strongest stuff first, and make sure each clip runs no more than maybe 5 seconds to 8 seconds, the longest. You want to, have it flow quickly, succinctly together. As far as on the cheap, you can get really, really high quality USB microphones for under $100 on Amazon. You can find message boards online or ask around other voice acting community networks on the internet and find what mics have worked well for which people and hear examples of how clean the sound comes through before you make a purchase. You can really, really easily make a soundproof area with either some soundproofing foam or even just a few pillows. Like, it's like a tiny little pillow fort. I make them at the hotels when I have to record out of the way, where I just kind of put 2 pillows up next to each other with one in the back and then put like a little towel over the top, and it's like a tiny little pillow igloo, and I put the microphone in the middle, and I'm like, that cost me nothing. So that's an option. There is free audio editing software like Audacity. Is a really good one online. There's a number of others that I've seen as well. So you put all that together and then just record yourself, listen to yourself talking out loud a lot, be open to criticism and critiquing from people. You cannot have an ego in this industry because it is so much rejection. Being an actor means most of your job is being rejected. Seriously, guys. So be ready for that. You have to be ready to just be like, all right, I didn't get that, or that didn't sound good. They didn't pick me. That's fine. You just move on. You don't wait to hear back. You finish the audition and then you move on to the next venture. That way, if it doesn't happen, you've already forgotten it. If it does happen, that's a cool surprise. So yeah, just listen to what's out there. Try and tune yourself to it. If you're looking for good soundtracks and audio, there's a guy named Kevin MacLeod that has a website called Incompetech, like incompetent, but Incompetech, that has just slew of royalty-free music of all different genres and styles. That's a great place to just download for free MP3s that he says are royalty-free. It's totally fine, and use that for background music for your demo to kind of match the style of voices you're doing. So I mean that's a pretty solid base to go off of right there. And if you have any more questions about that, and if you guys have any questions about how to get into the industry, I highly recommend two things. There's a great book by Yuri Lowenthal and Tara Platt called Voiceover Voice Actor. Extremely helpful and a great look at the industry as a whole. And a website called iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. It's a blog site that is run by D. Bradley Baker, one of the most prolific and talented voice actors in the industry today. He's an incredible talent, an incredible man, and he keeps it updated with information for all the folks that are just now looking to get into the industry. So that place can answer better questions about how to become a voice actor than I could ever hope for. Plus, you get really sick of me telling you that over and over again. So go check out the site. It's extremely helpful. All right, let's go ahead and let's find, let's see. You over there with the nurse hat.
Okay, so how would you feel about an Overwatch skin pack, which is a crossover of the classic Disney movie Cars and Overwatch, featuring such characters as Lightning McCree?
That's an elaborate question. So what would I feel about an Overwatch skin pack that was a crossover with the Disney film Cars and Overwatch? That would be very interesting. Lightning McCree would be very interesting.
You say ka-chow.
What's up?
Would you say ka-chow?
Can I say ka-chow? Ka-chow. I hope that's what you were looking for. That would be. I imagine the licensing cost on making that thing happen would probably not be worth it for Blizzard. No, but it would be very fun to just watch a bunch of these cars running around on one of the maps and just crashing into each other. That'd be kind of fun. I'm just sad McCree didn't get his Van Helsing Halloween costume like the comic. I was like, come on, guys. But he got the USA one, which I didn't get in time. Got every other Summer Games skin except for my own. That's all right. All right, let's go ahead and move. You, sir, with your hair back.
Yes. So you've gone from doing these very tiny roles, getting cast by companies like Valve and Blizzard. Is that the result of having a very good agent, or persistence, or just saturation in the voiceover?
All of that. Diligence is the main thing for voiceover. You have to be looking for opportunities, and having a good agency helps you find those opportunities, because a lot of these projects aren't blanket shotgun, throw them out into the ether. They'll go directly to who the main talent agencies are out there, and then they go ahead and go through their roster of actors and then give the auditions to who they think would best fit these roles. So yeah, I mean, I started super small, and as the years went on, I proved to my agency what I was capable of and began to book more work, which meant that when they got higher profile projects, they would then pass the auditions on to me, because they like, oh, well, this guy's doing pretty good with this stuff. We'll give that to him and see if he books it. And so it's one of those things where work begets work. Also, me being a huge fan of video games helped too, because I understood genres very well. When I saw something come in for a Blizzard property, and it was an orc, I'd be like, I know exactly what this is. Whereas some actors may be like, it's a green guy with big tusks. I don't know what Warcraft means. I'm like, I have 7 max level characters, asshole. So yeah, it did help understanding a lot of the stuff that was casting. But really, like anything else like that, it's luck of the draw. Every time I submit an audition, a lot of times it's me versus upwards 800 or more other people. And some poor schmuck in the production team has to sit there with a laptop for several days and just listen to every single audition file. And then they'll cull that list down to their selects of 50, passes off to another producer, then listens to those 50 and calls that down to their 10 best choices to give those to the lead producers of the project. They'll get with their team and pick their 2 or 3 favorites. Then they'll probably have callbacks, which then they bring you in to actually meet the production team, get you in the booth, and the last 3 or 5 people they pick will then audition again with more dialogue and take direction from them to see which of them they can fine-tune to where they want the actual character's final voice to be. And then that one person books it out of that 800 plus. So that's the process for every single thing that ever auditions. So any booking I've had, I feel extremely lucky and extremely honored, and I've worked very hard to try and stand out in those regards. But for everyone I book, there's 50, 60 other that I don't. So I'd like to say the progression is just continued years of hard work and trying to prove myself in the industry, and being lucky enough to seize the opportunity when a few roles came by that were in my wheelhouse. Yeah. It's just one of those things where you do good work, you keep your head down, you stay humble, and don't let the difficulty of rejection drag you down. In time, you'll be able to prove yourself. May take a while. It took me a while. Good question. Let's see. Let's go and I've got to go with Xillia here. Sorry. What's your question, dear?
You've been on Hot Pepper Gaming twice.
I've been on Hot Pepper Gaming twice. Yes, I'm that stupid.
Okay, 2 questions. First off, how was it? And secondly, would you ever go back?
Okay, first question. How was it? It sucked. It sucked so bad. I'm not a spicy pepper guy. I don't even eat jalapenos. I'm like, it's not my thing. But Vernon, the guy who runs it, him and Jared both are friends, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. Like, you want to do habanero? I'm like, no, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do this right. If I'm gonna hate myself and hurt myself, let's go the full gamut here. So we went ghost pepper. I feel like I did better than I thought I would. I was expecting a full meltdown. Apparently, I have a decent pain tolerance. It still sucked for a while, and let me tell you, for those who aren't aware, you have heat receptors on both ends of your digestive system. So, yeah, that pepper comes back to haunt you. But yeah, it was painful. It sucked. But at the same time, I understand it because the endorphin release afterward was actually pretty awesome. Like about 20 minutes afterward, I'm sitting on the couch, and as soon as the pain subsides, I'm like, oh, I get it. I didn't have to pay someone in an alleyway for this. That statement could be taken so many terrible ways. But it actually unlocked a joy of spicy food that I didn't have before. I've actually gone and sought out and enjoyed spicier dishes, like really, really spicy Indian food and things like that I didn't previously like. So thank you, Hot Pepper Gaming. I went back for a second time because I'm stupid. Partially because Marisha was going to go back a second time. I wanted to support her, so I figured we'd both do it at the same day together. And, of course, if you get back a second time, you have to up the ante. So I had to do a dried ghost pepper slathered in habanero sauce and be just a real self-hating person. So at least I was doing Bloodborne for that. So, I could express the pain of the experience through actual physical pain. Would I go back? Maybe. It'd have to be the right game. And I would have to be clocking in a real serious favor for those two guys. Oh yeah. There's a number of reasons that I would go back. None of them involve me being of clear mind. So we'll see. Let's see. Right there, Kirby.
How are you doing your roles of Leorio from Hunter x Hunter, being silly and all?
So how am I enjoying my role as Leorio in Hunter x Hunter? That's a character that is very different from the usual that I do, and it's been an absolute blast. Oh yeah, Leorio is very high energy, very driven, maybe not the most, how do I put it, well thought out and execution type character. He's very, very brash in some ways, and is very sure of his poor decision making. And it's a lot of fun, especially against the rest of the cast, which has a bunch of these much younger, but all creepily intelligent and mature kids. And he's the one older, taller, well put together guy who is just so stupid in so many ways. It's a lot of fun. And that whole series is ridiculous. We had a blast with it. So Leorio has been really great. Good time to play, and I'm pretty sure he comes back later in the series. So I'll have the opportunity to jump back in those shoes again. Maybe he'll learn a thing or two in the process. Maybe. We'll see. I was glad to know that he had a deeper meaning to his story than initially thought. So otherwise, oh yeah, he was a fun one. Which is great too, because Leorio's all up here. He's all just way over the top, and come on, guys, we can do this! Yeah! Different kind of role than I usually do, which is fun. Thank you. Next question. Let's go with the glasses and the hood, please.
What
myself all the time. So, what are tips for like distinguishing the different voices that you do, making sure that not quite every voice sounds like that?
Right. Okay, so tips for distinguishing your voices from your normal voice. One, don't be afraid to just be really good at your voice. There are many very, very talented voice actors that only really have one or two character voices, but they book a lot because it's unique in its own right. Pamela Adlon, who's the voice of Bobby Hill in King of the Hill, does a lot of cartoons, but she pretty much sounds like herself or Bobby Hill, and there's no variation, but she has a very unique texture to her voice, so she still books a lot. John DiMaggio, who is Bender, he does a lot of work, but he pretty much sounds like Bender or sounds like Jake the dog. But he's just really good at what he does, so he works a lot. So don't feel like you have to have 1,000 voices to be a competitive voice actor. Tips to expand your range, though, just spend your free time, whether it be in the shower, in your car driving, this is usually what I do, just improvising dialogue with yourself. You'll look like the crazy person who's driving and talking to yourself on the freeway, because you are the crazy person driving and talking to yourself on the freeway. But that's time where, one, no one's around to really judge you. And if they are, they're in that car over there, and you just turn back to them and go, hey. And they drive faster and never see you again, and it's fine. But use that time to try and mimic voices that you may want to try and aspire. And even though you may not reach a good impression of a character voice of what somebody else does, in the process of getting there, you might find something unique that sounds completely different from yourself and what they're doing. And if you like that sound, record about 30 seconds of you doing it. So you can always refer back to that audio file if you wanted to match it again. And what you do is you just practice and practice until you get so comfortable with the place where you put that voice that you can call it out immediately when you need to. I remember years ago, I was like, I really, really love Maurice LaMarche's Orson Welles, the brain voice that he does, right? And so I just began to practice it. And it took me a number of years, but eventually got to that point where he's sort of, let's bring ourselves together now, Pinky. No, you don't. The same thing we do every night. And so in time, you just learn to call that to your attention where it's necessary. But even then, you can take this voice and you make it a little more subtle, a little more deeper, and it becomes this sort of creepy thing as well. So you play in those spaces and you find variations and new characterizations. So you mix it up and you cross over and you mix and match and you find unique voices to yourself. Record them as soon as you find a fun place, and then just practice and practice and practice. That's really all there is to it beyond that. You only find unique variations as long as you're trying to get out of your comfort zone. And then once you find a place you like, just work on it constantly. And be that crazy person. All right, let's go. Oh, you sir jumped out of your seat. That's the only one that gets it out jumping out of the seat, by the way. I don't want everyone jumping out of their seat now, but I appreciate your gumption.
So this is a question that I got are there any real skills that you can do that
So somebody's yelling in that other room real loud when you were talking. What was that?
Are there any scenes that you're quite awkward? Let's say,
Scenes that I find out. Oh yeah, there's plenty. I just finished recording. They haven't announced the series yet. I just finished recording on a series that had a number of very awkward scenes, and to the point where I had to take pictures of the screen pauses at certain moments and send them to my girlfriend and be like, "What is life today?" She's like, "What is that from?" I'm like, "I'm not telling you anything. Just appreciate this picture." And she's like, "Okay, that's weird." Yeah, there's plenty of awkward scenes. I would say, oh man, the whole Hot Springs special scene in Xillia was fun. And all the boys are crammed together inside a giant Timo, having their towels dissolved. Yeah, that one. Let's see. I mean, it's awkward in a fun way whenever you have to do very emotional proposals to somebody in a game. A lot of the Fire Emblems tend to carry that. But Patrick Seitz, who was directing me as Crom, made me look him in the eyes just to mess with me. He's like, do you know the lines? If you look at the script, I'm like, yeah, I know pretty well. He's like, good. Don't look away. And we're recording. And so I'm staring at him through the glass going, You are the wind at my back and the sword at my... I can't do this, Patrick. He's like, no, do it. So that was awkward. I recorded on a Hypothetical North Star video game years ago. I played a character, Ray, green mullet, slices people with his fingertips. It's fun. But his technique is all about cutting people apart with his fingers. And they hadn't... I guess... Because we were just pounding through the script, trying to get it done. And somewhere on the production side, they didn't really proofread some of the lines. And we're just reading them out loud as they come. And so I get to one line I read, and I just say it out loud as I read it for the first time. There's no way you can stop me from getting my fingers inside you. And we had to stop and be like, let's rewrite that line a little bit. So yeah, there's a few awkward moments. There's plenty out there. That's probably a whole different panel, and some of them incriminating. So hope that was enough. All right. Let's see. Yes, right over there. Yes, yes.
So while working, how often do you usually have to redo your lines? And how do you feel hearing yourself
So when I missed the first part of that. Sorry.
working, how often do you have to re-record the lines?
Oh, when working, how often do you have to re-record your lines? You have what are called pickup sessions, which is when you finish recording initial dialogue for a game or a cartoon, and then as they go back and assemble the audio files, it doesn't quite sound right. Either the dialogue was a little janky when it's finally all put together, or they find out that while you recorded the lines to be across a room from each other, the animation actually has them right next to each other, and they're both shouting for no reason at their faces. Then you go back and do pickup sessions. So those you re-record lines with new dialogue or new direction to make it match what the scene has. So that's fairly common. As far as hearing myself, it was weird at first. It's still weird on occasion, but in this job, you have to get used to it. You get used to being critical of hearing yourself and how you can improve. So whereas all of us initially are like, oh, I hate hearing my own voice. Everyone has that, even voice actors. But we have to come at it from a critical ear standpoint and be able to listen to and get used to it and kind of fine tune and be like, okay, there's not enough texture there. I'd like to make it sound a little more rough, or okay, let me see if I can get a little higher pitch in this, or a little more emotion, and then pull it back. You get very technical with hearing it. So it's not so much being bothered by the sound of it anymore, more than it's just kind of like the script writer who watches a film and is like, oh, well, that dialogue was terrible. Like you get too into the bones of it. You know the X-ray view of it too often to the point where I have a hard time stepping back and enjoying games that I've worked in to a certain extent. But that's fine. I like working on them. But there is something a little bittersweet about being able to work on projects that I'm really excited for, and then having it partially spoiled or some of the immersion taken away a little bit because I already know what's going to happen, and that's me talking out of Robin. So that's interesting. Good question. I think we've got time for about we got 15 more minutes. Lovely. Let's go and say you in the way back. Sorry, what was the second half of that again? Resources for dialects and accents. Yes, actually. There is a wonderful website called the IDEA, the International Dialects of English Archive. It's a website that has it broken down by continent, then country, then region, and plenty of audio files of people that are naturally from those various locations in the world reading English text from even like the early 40s up to modern day. And it's a great resource to listening for different dialects and differences in different regional dialects. There's also the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet, which is a very technical way of learning. And for those who are really good at details and structure and that type of process of learning works well for you. Once you know it, you can pick up dialects really quickly from just breaking them down that way. The IPA is great, and I know a lot of actors that swear by it. I can't wrap my head around it. I'm more of an audio-based learner. I can pair it and pick up quickly from just hearing it. So the International Dialects of English Archive became a much more important resource for me. But that changes from person to person. One way will be better for some than the others will be. But yeah, the idea is great. It's saved me and taught me a lot of dialects that previously I had nowhere near enough mastery of. So check that out, definitely. No worries. Let's see. Let's go. You sir with the glasses. You've been patient for a bit.
I first came to the word on page 0.
Oh, page 0, yeah.
And I got to know good after my daughter's on page 0. Did you see it? Can you give some more insight of inspiration for page 0? I think it's very complex character.
Yeah.
Enough credit for it.
Well, thank you. So talking about Fate Zero, he's asking about some insight into the complexities of Kiritsugu. Who here hasn't seen Fate Zero? I highly recommend it. Of all the anime projects I've been a part of, it's probably the one I'm most proud of. It's a great story, it's beautiful animation, beautiful soundtrack, and just a very intricate, deep, and dark tale. All the characters are complex and moral shades of gray across the board. It's just a very fascinating. In many ways, I could say it's almost like the Game of Thrones of anime, not in the sense of like, oh, everyone dies, but like, and the fact that every character has their own motivations, and even the evil characters, you can kind of understand why they do the things. Even the good characters, you're like, you're not really that good, and it's just a very interesting, very well-structured series. My character, Kiritsugu Emiya, is a very complex protagonist because he's not really a good guy either. He has his own moralistic code. He has his own idea of what saving the world means, but he has this duality between wanting to do what's best for his family and for those that are important to him, but also is very much an ends justify the means type person. And sometimes those two come into conflict. And what's more important, saving his family or saving the world? And he himself, in this conflict, he has his own sense of honor as well and is willing to do whatever it takes to accomplish his goals. So he's just a very sly, wonderful, awful character in so many ways. And as the series goes on and you follow him, there are times that you're like, oh, he's a really, really sweet guy. I see that he has his own drives and goals, and he wants to be a family man and wants to represent the family he's currently guarding, essentially. But at the same time, as you get more insight into his backstory and see why he is the way he is, he's had a terrible life in his own right. He's going to make so many terrible decisions that have forged him into who he is, that by the series end, you have a very, very clear idea of how broken a person he is, even though he is the protagonist. And getting my head wrapped around the character of Kiritsugu very much came to, one, understanding his whole backstory, and two, knowing how much he guards versus how much he's willing to show, and how much of what he shows is truth versus what he thinks the other people want to hear. He's very manipulative, and he very much understands or believes he can find ways to understand every other person's motive and how best they interact with people. And so in a way, he can kind of chameleon what little bit of himself that he shows to get what he needs to out of each person and then use that against them. And it's just this constant chess game of personalities and combat. And people have asked me in past panels, like, of all the characters you voiced, if they were all at a fight, who would win? And I'd be like, honestly, Kiritsugu Emiya. Because while they're all in there, like, sword versus blade clashing and magical powers and jumping in the air, all of a sudden the place is just going to blow up and whoever survives is going to get sniped from a bullet from 2 miles away, and Kiritsugu's just going to put his cigarette out and be like, I win. Like, that's just kind of how he is. It's a great character. I love him to death. Thank you. Good question. Alrighty. Let's see if we can cruise through as many of these questions as possible. You, sir, in the back with the white and red, you've had your hand up for a bit.
Have you noticed in the industry, I can't imagine if you work very well for fights, but for stuff that's created by dimension having action flaps, are any studios starting to adopt the technique that a lot of bridgers use, which is modifying and editing the flaps to suit the needs of the dialogue? Any studios started doing that to expand the options?
I actually don't know. As actors, we're the last to know anything when it comes to the production process. I would like to think they begin to do that because that would make our job a hell of a lot easier. Because sometimes having to match the flap exactly, and we have to rewrite dialogue so often to make it sound natural and fit the beats in there. Whereas our language and the meter and cadence of English versus the meter and cadence of Japanese or other languages are vastly different. And so that's the challenge for good adapters, good script adapters, to find that kind of middle ground. I would love for that to be a thing. And as a person who's done editing, I can't see how, in some cases, it's not that difficult. But it's it's a question of cost versus time, and there's a lot of different factors in the production and the post-production cycle that go beyond just our performance and editing. So I hope that's the case, and if it's starting to be adopted and it does well and it's proven to help maybe save time or maintain quality without costing that much more, I would love for companies to do that. I really would, because it's a little frustrating sometimes on this side of the mic, especially for action scenes. Though there is something kind of fun about chasing an action scene. There's a term called chasing a scene when you're recording, which means it's usually for action scenes where there's not a lot of dialogue per se. But as opposed to taking it beat by beat, they'll take a section of 30 seconds and they'll play it for you, and you're just essentially doing the impact sounds as you're watching them happen. And you'll be like a little bit afterwards, but then they'll just adjust to move it up. So you watch 30 seconds and chase the scene by going like, you do that all in one take. They'll adjust it to fit with the dialogue or fit with the action on the scene, and then you manage to get that whole sequence in 1 or 2 takes. If they were able to adjust the flaps to whatever's needed, then we can just do whatever we want to when it felt natural, and they can just alter it to what it needs to be. So I hope that becomes the standard eventually. All right, we got time for a couple more questions. I'll try and keep it quick on some of these answers there. You right there. Yes. I'm going to stand up for these because now I'm got the energy intensity going.
Okay, this is actually a request because I'm not original. We started a video. You remember Crom, don't you?
Of course I remember Crom.
Yeah, you're going to need to finish what you started.
All right. You are the wind at my back and the sword at my side. Together, my love, will make a more peaceful world. Just you and me. There you go. You're welcome. To which it's all. He falls over. Someone call the Undertaker. Well done. All right. You've also been ecstatic with your hand up in the air. Yes. Ryoma in the other Fire Emblem. Great. When they brought me in to work on the sequel, I was like, okay, we have to try and make everything stand out against Crom's voice previously. So Ryoma being this, much deeper and kind of intense, honorable warrior, and kind of the faction head, if you will, was a lot of fun. But I like the idea of a character that, amongst all the rest of the absolutely weird, strange people that encompass the rest of the Hoshido side of that story, our fair lobster lord himself was, stoic and strong. But still had kind of a sensitive affection for the rest of his family and his children. And I had a great time playing that whole project. I will say that Shigure was my favorite, partially because he was so different from the rest of the characters in the series. He was more sensitive and music-based. And having the chance to sing in a project doesn't happen very often, so it was kind of fun to go in there and record all the songs for his DLC, which was a lot of fun. So, good question. All right, see if I can nab a few more questions here. You there with the bows and the red hair.
I was just wondering where gaming is taking a really online focus in a lot of games and tags and gaming. Do you find it as a gamer hard to have a social relationship with others you're gaming with without being recognized, or have it focus on that rather than you just want to sit there and play games?
For me, I find that most people on the internet, if they see a name or a gamer tag that would indicate me, they immediately think that's not him. Because it's the internet. You never believe what you see. So it hasn't been a problem. My Blizzard tag is mercenary. And which means either they're like, stupid person, or they misspelled mercenary. What an idiot. It's never really been a problem. So I'm not too worried about it. If it was one of those things where there was a video feed or a picture, probably me just going they'd be like, someone putting Matt as their profile picture. That's stupid. I'm fine. Good question though. All right, let's see if we get a few. Are you there with your jacket? The doc? Yeah, yes.
Okay. So imagine this. You walk into a bar and you're faced with every character you've ever played, and you have to fist fight one of them. Who do you choose and why?
Every character I've voiced, who do I fist fight one? Who would I choose and why? Oh, man. Oh, man. I would say... the kanji fight would get sexy, definitely. Oh, man. I would say Haiji Toa from what's that game called again? Thank you. The Danganronpa, because he's got one arm and a sling, so he's really only got one hand. And so it'd be just kind of like just beating up a guy with a disadvantage anyway, so it'd be him. And he's kind of like a crazy prick in the game anyway, so he has it coming. All right, I think I got... one more last quick question. To spin around. You're closest to my finger.
What's it like taking over roles from previous voice actors like Troy Baker, for instance?
Good question. It's intimidating. Taking over a role that's already been established by a previous actor, it's a difficult circumstance for one, because you have to try and match and carry over the essence of what they've already established and kind of show respect and honor to what they've already done, especially if it's a beloved character like Kanji. For me, as a gamer as well, I want to make sure that I can give as much life and carry the torch as best as possible. Also, the internet is waiting in the wings to destroy you if you mess it up. Everyone's just like on GameFAQs going like, "Come on, buddy, just misstep once and you're dead." So yeah, you know, I take it very seriously, and I research, and I try and make it as seamless a transition as I can. I'm a different person, so it's not gonna be perfect per se, but I do the best I can, and also bring something a little new and fresh to it for myself as a performer. I'm not trying to copy a performance. I'm trying to take the essence of a performance and then make it my own. And I think that's kind of the interesting and fun part about doing it as a performer. But yeah, I'm very honored whenever I get the opportunity to do that. But it is very stressful. Good question. All right, guys, unfortunately, that's all the time I have. Thank you so much for coming. I have other thing. I'm giving you the rest of my schedule here. I'm running off to do autographs right now down in the Expo Center from 4 to 5. We have a guest Q&A back here at 5 o'clock p.m. So that'll be me and the other guests as well. So come back with any questions you still have burning. And then tomorrow at noon, me and Taliesin will be having a Critical Role RPG discussion here as well. And then we have another voiceover video game panel tomorrow at 1 p.m. So, guys, thank you so much for coming. I'll see you on the rest of the convention for the rest of the evening. Mwah.